Well, good afternoon there. Thank you very much for staying with KTN News. My name is Betty Kello. Very happy that you could be with us on this Jamhuri Day. I hope you're enjoying the day, even when you're at home enjoying the holiday. Of course, we've been following up on what else has been happening at the Kasarani Stadium. We've been following on the celebrations that have been held there. And for the last couple of, maybe an hour, we've been listening to the president give his speech, really talking about a wide range of issues. We'll be going back to the ground to just hear what Kenyans have to say about the things that he's mentioned, but just to sample one or two key issues he's mentioned. And really, the biggest take-home that is already creating a conversation online is the big four that he says his government will for the next 5 years now focus on, and the big four include food security, affordable housing. Remember that these are also things that he spoke about during the inauguration. He talked about food security being one of them, affordable housing, manufacturing, and healthcare. He says that those are the biggest things that he wants to tackle in this 5 years that he now has to create a legacy. He's mentioned quite a number of issues with regard to the projects that he's going to be undertaking in government, and a lot of things also. He's gone on a political beat, really. I'll mention that just before he finished up with his speech. He, of course, took a drive at the political situation here in the country, talking about giving a notice to all the people who are not respecting and upholding the laws in the Constitution. He says that anything that is outside the Constitution is completely not welcome. That, of course, could resonate with the situation that has been created by the NASA political side of the divide, but we'll be getting to that later. He also mentioned that anybody who destroys property will face the full force of the law. Just going back also to the chaos, the protests that we've been seeing, indeed this during this electioneering period, I beg your pardon, just talking about anybody who destroys property will be able to face the full force of the law. He's also directed quite a number of institutions with regard to different things. And for example, I'll take a look at what he said about KRA. And he's directed that anybody who would be found with counterfeit goods, first of all, the counterfeit goods should be destroyed immediately. And any officer from the KRA or any person found guilty of that should be prosecuted immediately. That's also something that he's mentioned. So we'll be playing some of those bites that he gave in a few moments. But he also mentioned something very important. And he mentioned that during this electioneering period, drivers who are ferrying passengers from one part of the country to the other, they should be extremely cautious. Remember that for the last couple of weeks, and especially for the last 2 days, we've had quite a number of people losing their lives with regard to driver safety, roads, and of course accidents. So we just want to bring you up to speed with also another development coming from what he mentioned earlier. And over 19 people are feared to have died after several vehicles were involved in a multiple accident at Kamukuya Bridge along the Kitale-Webuye Highway on Monday. Now, according to Bungoma North's OCPD Eliud Okello, a matatu rammed into a tractor that was transporting sugarcane at Kamukuya Bridge. Several other vehicles, including lorries and private vehicles, were involved in the 9 p.m. multiple accident. The Nissan Matatu was ferrying passengers from Kitale to Webuye town. The scene of the accident has been identified as a black spot by area residents. Tonyoni, we spoke to him about 2 or 3 hours ago, and he was giving us an update of what's happening on the ground. Robert, good afternoon. So can you talk to us about the kind of investigations that are ongoing? And also, we understand that there are also people who are in hospital receiving treatment. What is their status?
Good afternoon, Betty. Thank you very much. We are here to Webuye Sub-County Hospital, whereby we are watching as the doctors struggle to save more lives from the yesterday's accident. And what we are gathering from the doctors is that we only have one survivor who, as I speak now, is being prepared to be transferred to Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret, while the other 19 bodies are being held at the Webuye Hospital mortuary. And also what we are gathering, Betty, is that from the dead, 19 of them is that 9 are family members who are coming from Kitale after attending a ceremony there. And it's a very sad incident that residents are now saying they are urging the government to look into measures in which they can now prevent more accidents happening in that bridge, considering that several days back, like 2 weeks ago, there was also an accident whereby 2 lives were lost, and also last 2 months ago, also there was another accident. So they say this is a killer bridge that has to attract attention from the government so that the government can put in place measures to ensure that loss of lives is prevented, Betty.
All right, and earlier on you were able to speak to some of the residents there, and of course they say that this particular part of the road has been a big issue for a very long time, but then nothing has ever been done. So after this particular unfortunate accident, what is the situation really? What are the police saying? Are there any NTSA officers who have come on the ground, and what are they saying about this particular black spot?
Yes, Betty, we have spoken to several residents, and some of them you had them on live when we were talking to them, and they are saying that several accidents have been happening in this area, but no measures have been taken. In fact, the residents now have run out of solutions, and some of them are now suggesting that since they had already done some cleansing in form of spiritual prayers by Christians, now they are urging the government to bring witch doctors that they can pay for themselves and do the cleansing, because they are saying they have run out of options to rid this road of road accidents. And also, we have spoken to the police officers who say that who have said that the first lorry that crashed there rammed into a Nissan Matatu that was just beside the road there, causing another jam from other vehicles that were coming very fast. And you see, that now calls upon the transport section maybe to put some road bumps along that road, because the speed at which vehicles approach that area is very, very high.
Right. Robert Wanyonyi there speaking to us by way of phone, just giving us an update of that unfortunate accident that took place in Kamukoya. Remember also that we also have some breaking news, and this is another accident, and it says that at least 32 people in a 13 vehicle pileup have lost their lives. This is another one that had just happened just a few moments ago. We understand that at least 32 people have been killed in a 13 vehicle pileup caused by a lorry that was evading NTSA officers. And we understand that there are people who are still trapped, and the responders are on the ground trying to cut through the wreckage. This has happened in Sachangwan. So this is also some news coming in, devastating news again, after the 19 people died along the Kamukoya bridge. Now we understand that we have 32 other people who have been killed in a 13 vehicle pileup that was caused by a lorry that was trying to evade NTSA officers. And we understand also that more people have been trapped, and therefore responders are trying to just cut through the wreckage to rescue them. So we'll be getting the latest details here on KTN News. But in the same breath, President Uhuru Kenyatta has urged Kenyans, and specifically drivers, to be cautious on the roads following the state of road accidents. Let's listen in to what he said earlier.
Sasa wakati haswa tunaelekea katika sikukuu ya Krismasi na mwaka mpya, nataka niwaombe wa Kenya, haswa madriver wetu, tafadhalini tujichunge kwa mabarabara zetu. Hii siku chache tumepoteza waimbaji wengi, tumepoteza pia pahali hapo kulikuwa accident ingine juzi. Leo hii pia Bungoma accident ambayo imechukua maisha ya Wakenya wengi. Tafadhalini tujichunge. Let us be cautious on our roads during this festive season. Let us realize, especially those drivers of public transport, that you are not carrying cabbage, you are carrying the lives of people, and you need to take care. And equally, we take this opportunity to also instruct our police force that anybody caught flouting traffic rules, immediate and severe action must be taken against those particular individuals.
All right, I want to bring in my colleague, George Maringa, who's joining us from here in Nairobi, but he has the latest details with regard to that accident that I just hinted on. 32 people losing their lives in a 13-vehicle pileup. Good afternoon, George. This is, of course, devastating news. What more do we know about this particular accident in Sachangwan?
Yes, good afternoon to you, Betty. You, as rightly put it, so far the information that we have is over 32 people have been feared dead following the accident at Sachangwan. And according to eyewitnesses, is that it's a truck driver who was trying to escape TSA officials who were after him, and thus he hit the vehicle or hit incoming vehicles, and among them a modern coast bus, 4 Nissan Matatus, a truck, and several other private vehicles. So for Betty, that is in the information that you have. They are still confirming the number of casualties. The victims, or I mean the survivors, have been rushed to Nakuru General Referral Hospital, and some, according to some witnesses, there is that some of them are still trapped at the accident scene. Betty, that is the information that we have so far.
Right, George, just before I let you go, of course, you've mentioned quite correctly that, you know, there are people who are still trapped inside the wreckage. Do we know the kind of responders who are already on the ground? Is it Red Cross? What can you tell us about that? All right, we seem to have lost George, but it's okay. We'll try and get him in a few minutes to give us more detail on this latest accident where 32 people have lost their lives in a 13-vehicle pileup in Sachangwan. So we understand that it involved a lorry that was trying to escape NTSC officials, and that happened that he caused that accident. That accident, and the 13 vehicles leading to 32 people losing their lives, I beg your pardon. All right, now let's go back to President Uhuru Kenyatta, who has just led Kenyans in celebrating Jamhuri Day at the Kasarani Stadium, where he urged Kenyans to build a peaceful nation. The president further said that nobody is above the law. Let's just listen into part of what he had to say with respect to uniting the country.
Fellow Kenyans, unity is paramount to the realization of a peaceful and prosperous nation. Every Kenyan must understand its value and how our individual choices, particularly in politics, play into building or destroying it. The unity of our nation is the shield against the dangers that have shattered other countries. It protects us against any enemy by frustrating attempts to divide and therefore weaken us. Unity allows us to forge forward together in building families, communities, counties, and a nation that knows what it wants and where it is going. Every day we see evidence of how much stronger and well-off united families are. It is indeed the same with a nation. Families that are united may disagree on some matters, but they will always be guided by the well-being of the family. And they know that disagreement must never lead to discord. Let us bring this understanding to our citizens so that in our words and in our actions, we reject the politics of divisiveness and confrontation. Fellow Kenyans, today we also celebrate a rebirth of a nation, a shift from the old to the new. Today we celebrate what our founding fathers imagined and created, but we also celebrate the generational transition from their generation to ours. When our founding fathers constituted Kenya, they did it with the fresh wounds from the Independence War. They had conquered the enemy, but the daunting task of uniting our communities into one nation remained. That was why they taught us to celebrate our diversity and to preserve our traditions. But they did caution that we should not poison the minds of our young people with ethnic disharmony. As your fourth president, I will not tire of reminding you that you will have a fifth and even 10th president, but we will not have a second, third, or fourth Kenya. Preserving Kenya is preserving yourself, because Kenya is you, and you are Kenya. I am proud to be a Kenyan, to belong to a nation that has within a few short decades shown the world the excellence of its people, its love of democracy and liberty, and its ambition to be a force for good in our region and the world. I call on all Kenyans to join me in proclaiming pride in our beloved country. Celebrate being a part of a generation that can and will be remembered fondly by those yet to be born for the achievements you will add to those of our forefathers. As your president, I also pledge to you today to continue to work to bring harmony between communities, to deepen our unity, and to foster national cohesion. I want you in this spirit to also turn to the person sitting or standing next to you. Greet them and say how proud you are to be Kenyan, and tell them that you are their keeper, because to be Kenyan, at its core, is about loving your neighbor. My friends, our founding fathers taught us one more thing, that the person who plants is not always the one who harvests. They toiled to plant this nation, though they knew it was their children who would harvest the fruits of their labor. It is our generation that has reaped that harvest, and we have the responsibility of protecting our inheritance, renewing it periodically, so that our children and our children's children can harvest the fruits of our labor. Fellow Kenyans, there is a different thinking that has been evolving, a thinking that offends the principles of the founding fathers, the thinking that promotes the belief that we strengthen the weak by weakening the strong. It wants us to believe that a Kenyan can climb the ladder of prosperity only if he brings down a fellow Kenyan. This thinking has cost us lives and property in the last few months. I condole with those who have lost their loved ones and property in the recent disturbances. Fellow Kenyans, for a long time now, many in our political arena have believed that politics matters more than economic development. We have drawn Kenyans into our squabbles. For 50 years, we have squabbled over politics for politics' sake and squandered economic opportunities that would have made a difference in the lives of our people. My friends, there is abundant evidence that focusing on economic development does transform nations.
That is President Uhuru Kenyatta a few moments ago speaking about unity here in the country. All right, we'll be going back to what he said about various issues here in the country, but we want to focus a bit on this developing story right now. Remember, like I mentioned to you, there's another horrific accident that has taken place in Sachangwan, which has left 32 people dead. We understand it was a 13-vehicle pileup, and it was caused by a lorry that was evading NTSA. And we also understand that there are more people who are still trapped inside the wreckage, but there are responders on the ground who are trying to rescue the people who've been trapped. I want to bring in my colleague Benedetta Moura. She's joining us from Nakuru. She's just from the hospital. Benedetta, talk to us about what you've seen. What kind of injuries have the people who were involved in this accident? What are they being treated for? What can you tell us from the hospital?
Yes, Betty, I'm at Nakuru Provincial General Hospital, where over 28 survivors have been received so far. Mm-hmm. The hospital is yet to confirm on the number of people who have lost their lives on their way to the hospital. But yes, the accident involved over 10 vehicles, but the number of casualties is yet to be confirmed, as it has not been compiled from the scene, since some other bodies are still trapped and have not been retrieved yet. So far, so many people are being treated at the hospital. We have so many people who have been received, but at least some other training institutes have given out their nurses to come and help in the operation. The hospital has received the people who have been received at the hospital. Actually, most of them are being treated on legs and back injuries, but any other communication from the team is going to be updated in due time. Back to you, Betty. Right,
Benedetta, before I let you go, have you been able to speak to maybe some of the people who are receiving treatment, who are able to talk? Is there anything that you can tell us from the accounts that they witnessed?
Yes, we have spoken with a number of people who, some of them were saying they were asleep. Some of them were saying they were standing by the roadside. Some of them are saying they just saw this trailer coming down the hill, and it hit a number of vehicles which were coming from Nairobi, and which again reversed and hit some other vehicles which were standing by the roadside. And by the time the trailer hit these vehicles which were coming from Nairobi, it overturned and actually lied on other vehicles, and that is why a number of bodies are still trapped on vehicles which the trailer is lying on. That is so far the confirmation we have from the survivors, but any more information that is going to come up will update.
Do we know if there are any survivors who are also still trapped in the wreckage, who are trying to be rescued?
According to the people who are on the scene, because my colleague Daniel Opondo is the one who went to the scene, and I personally went to the hospital. According to him, there are no more survivors at the scene, and the police are trying to clear the road so that the jam can actually reduce for them to be able to retrieve the bodies that are still trapped. But for now, no other survivors have been mentioned to be still trapped at the scene. Back to you, Betty.
All right, Benedetta Moura, they're updating us on this developing story, the latest accident that has left 32 people dead. And we also understand from her that there are bodies that are still trapped in the wreckage. There are 28 people who are receiving treatment right now at the Nakuru Provincial Hospital. She's going to be updating us on that. All right, so we are about to wind things up here on News Desk. But before that happens, let's just take a look at other stories. And Mohamed Salah beat competition from the likes of Sadio Mane, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Victor Moses and Naby Keita to claim 2017 BBC African Footballer of the Year prize. The 25-year-old who joined Liverpool from AS Roma at the beginning of the season has enjoyed arguably the most successful year of his illustrious career, playing in the final of the African Cup of Nations and helping the Pharaohs to qualify for their first FIFA World Cup since 1990.